All right. Welcome, everyone. We are live with Bet What Happens Live. Kind of a wild game here between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee with a late pick on Dak Prescott and then grabbing a field goal. 10-6 game. So Tennessee only trails by 4 points. So we'll bring up my screen here and we'll show you kind of the situation that we have. So right now, Tennessee 15% about likely to win. Dallas about 85% to win according to live betting markets. Also, if we come over here, we see that these teams do play slower in the second half, slower pace. And we're in the scenario where Dallas leads and Tennessee trails. So let's highlight that. And it's also a close game. So let's highlight that. We're in a situation where these teams are likely to be playing a little bit slower per play in the second half. Now, ideally, we want to see the total go up before we take the under. And since I already took the second half under on Green Dot Daily, I have under 19.5 second half points that I gave out this morning on Green Dot Daily. I'm going to pass on any over or unders. But if you want to take a live under, I wouldn't hate it. We're in a situation where it should favor the under tier, especially with Tennessee starting with the ball. They're the slower of the two teams. So I don't hate a live under. I see a 35.5 at DraftKings. I see a 36.5 at FanDuel, minus 128 to the under. DraftKings minus 110 to the under at 35.5. So I don't hate that, but I wouldn't, I'm not taking it myself. So that's not going to be an official bet on Bet What Happens Live. By the way, if you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in chat. We'll be talking player props for the rest of this half here. So let's dive into the player props. And as always, I'm going to go right on over to the passing yards. That's where we're going to start here. Passing props. Dak Prescott's passing yardage prop is actually locked. And I think the reason is twofold. First, they're worried about maybe him getting pulled if this game ends up becoming a blowout. And second, we saw that little bit of an injury there towards the end of the half where he kind of got up a little gingerly after one of those plays. So his line is locked. Meanwhile, Joshua Dobbs has currently thrown for 113 yards, which is definitely 143 yards. Forgot that last play there. I had to update the Treylon Burks catch there. So let me update that. He's currently projected for 253.5, and the live line is 254.5. So no value there. We're showing basically a 50-50 split there. So no value on Josh Dobbs passing yardage prop. So let's head over to receiving yards. Let's look at the receivers in this game. Austin Hooper is at 11.5 for his live line. And Chigo Okonkwo is at 35.5. Let's continue with Tennessee here. We got Treylon Burks at 42.5. Robert Woods is locked, which I think is very interesting that he's locked. I think books are becoming pretty observant that he hasn't been in on all the plays. If we look, Treylon Burks has run 13 routes. Robert Woods has run 12 routes. And Racey McMath has actually picked up a couple of routes. I know there was one play where Robert Woods was out on a third down play. He was subbed out, and McMath was actually in there. So just something to keep an eye on that, Robert Woods could be pulled in the second half, which is probably why his prop is locked right now. It looks like Westbrook Akine is at 13.5. And that's all I'm seeing for Tennessee's receivers. Let's go to their running backs. Hassan Haskins, his prop is locked, kind of as I was guessing. And I don't see anything for Julius Chestnut or a Racey McMath or anyone like that. No Chris Conley here. So that's going to do it for the Tennessee receivers. Let's go over to Dallas. I believe Ezekiel Elliott, yes, he is locked. Malik Davis, I don't see a prop for him here. So let's go to the receivers. CD Lamb, he's at 86.5. We've got Michael Gallup, live line at 25.5. Noah Brown 15.5. And T.Y. Hilton is locked. We've got Dalton Schultz, 49.5. And Jake Ferguson, half a yard. And we're showing value on Jake Ferguson's under. Funny enough here, we are showing value on his under. So I think that's an interesting one there. It looks like, if Dallas continues to lead, first of all, they're not starting with the ball. And then if Dallas continues to lead, it could lead to a much more rush heavy script. So we're projecting Jake Ferguson for only 0.4 receiving or receptions the rest of the game for 3.35 yards on average. But again, that's an average, not a median. And that's because of the receiving yardage or the total receptions actually being favored to be basically zero. So that makes sense as to why Jake Ferguson under is favored at 70% here. So real quick, also looking, we got CeeDee Lamb under 86.5 as the live line. We're showing 60% value there on the under. And he does have 52 yards right now. But obviously, if Dallas takes a bigger lead, we could see them start to rest some players because this game doesn't become very meaningful. Obviously, also Tennessee could rest some players. So I do like this CeeDee Lamb under receiving prop. Now, I'd like it a lot more if this gap was a little bit bigger between Dallas and Tennessee. In fact, Tennessee could score here on this first possession, and I wouldn't love this as much. So what I think we're going to do with CeeDee Lamb is we're going to keep an eye on this first Tennessee drive and then potentially bet his under if Tennessee does not score. So if Tennessee does not score, I'll be looking to take CeeDee Lamb's under on this prop. I think it's possible to take it now, especially because Tennessee is starting with the ball. They're the slower paced of the two teams, and they're not likely to score, at least not likely to take the lead. If anything, potentially see another field goal here. So I actually don't mind taking this CeeDee Lamb prop now as well. So I'm kind of on the fence about it. If we don't end up with any other bets, I think that's what we'll end up taking. But let's real quick transition over to rushing props. Let me just make sure there's nothing I'm leaving out here on receiving yards because Zeke has been locked. So it looks like aside from Jake Ferguson and CeeDee Lamb, I'll bold their names real quick so we can come back to those. That's going to be it on receiving props. Rushing, real quick, we have Zeke at 50.5 rushing yards for his live line. And we have Dobbs at 30.5. So we're showing value on Dobbs under here. But I do think it's potentially more likely that, his usage is higher than we expected. So I want to avoid this one. Tennessee starting with the ball. And we did see Dobbs actually grab 3 carries in that first half, whereas, pregame we had projected for 6.7. So, I guess rest of game we have projected 3.1. So that's kind of interesting that we're showing value on his under here. I don't know what to make of that. I kind of want to just pass on that because it's kind of a weird situation. We're showing value on Zeke's over. Now, again, the concern would be, do they pull Zeke at some point? But right now, it's a close enough game where I don't think they're going to pull Zeke. Zeke has 21 rushing yards right now on 10 carries, which would be a median of 37 rest of game based off of his pregame projection and then scaling it based off of the game conditions, right? Pregame, we had him at 63.6 yards. So there is some value on Zeke's over. Of course, Dallas isn't starting with the ball this half, and the slower of the two teams, Tennessee is playing with the ball. So I'm going to pass there as well, just because of the chance he gets subbed out, especially, if Dallas were to score right away and Zeke isn't involved there. So I don't want to touch this over. So we're kind of in this weird situation because of all the potential player changes that I don't love a ton of stuff here. But what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to circle back. Gallup over under 25.5. 25.5 right there. We are showing exactly 50-50 value on that. So I think that's just a line where you got to pass. The book is going to win. The book is going to take their juice. And that's going to be the winning bet in the long run. So I would just pass on 25.5 on Gallup. Any other questions? Make sure to ask them in chat, and I will grab them before we go back live. Looks like we do still have about 3 minutes before halftime ends. So make sure to ask your questions in chat. I am going to end up going with CD Lamb under 86.5 receiving yards. Let me just make sure that's still the line before we go there. I don't want to, obviously have seen it moved. It's now at 88.5, which I like even better. So we're showing even more value on the under at 88.5. So instead of 60%, we're now showing 63.3% at 88.5. Let me real quick also just check DraftKings I'm on FanDuel now. Let me switch over to DraftKings to look at receiving yards. CD Lamb, yep, 88.5. So it's minus 115 at DraftKings. Under is minus 118 at FanDuel. So we'll take minus 115 at DraftKings. CD Lamb under 88.5 receiving yards, minus 115 at DraftKings is going to be our bet here. We are showing 63.3% chance of going under, plus Dallas is not starting with the ball, so probably even more likely that he goes under, especially if Tennessee doesn't take the lead here. So that is going to be our play for Bet What Happens Live. Any last questions? I will get a look. Woods under 24.5 if my book has it. That would be, we have him more likely to go over, but again, he could be spelled out a little bit. So, we have about 58% to go over 24.5 if your book has that. And it does look like Robert Woods, yeah, he has been unlocked. And I'm actually seeing 23.5 at FanDuel. So we're showing 60% over. But because he's been spelled out a few times, I think this over percentage could come down. So it's just another one where I'm going to pass, right? Like we're showing 60% value to the over, but there's a chance he comes out. Right now, he does have 10 receiving yards. So it's just a weird spot, another weird spot where I just want to pass. And sometimes it's okay to just not bet everything, right? It's okay to pass on games, to pass on spots. A bet that you don't make is sometimes just money saved by not paying juice to the book. So our only bet we're going to go with on this show, CD Lamb under 88.5 receiving yards. We're showing that at 63.3% under. I also like Jake Ferguson's under here. So we'll see what happens on that first drive and then maybe fire his under as long as Dallas is still in the lead. But that's going to do it for Bet What Happens Live. We'll see you on Monday Night Football for a really good one between Cincinnati and Buffalo. So tune in to that one. Enjoy the rest of the game, everyone.